Hello everyone, how's your day? I hope you all are doing absolutely fine. Today we're diving into some of the most intriguing, funny, and thought-provoking questions from askreddit. From wild confessions to unforgettable life moments, these stories will keep you hooked. So, sit back, relax, and let's get started.
What's a time you laughed at something that you shouldn't have laughed at? 1. Went to church as a kid. The church we went to did this charity called the Hat Tree. It was a Christmas tree that people would put gloves and hats for in need kids. Well, there was a typo, and it was in the church bulletin as the hate tree, my dad, and I couldn't stop laughing in church. I was just cracking up thinking what a hate tree would have on it. Like, would just be a Christmas tree with swastika ornaments and clan hood on top? 2. My own toddler daughter face-planting on the sidewalk running away from me after telling me she wasn't tired and didn't need a nap. 3. I tend to laugh when I'm uncomfortable. I was breaking up with my ex, and he was crying. This laugh just escaped me as tears rolled down his face. I felt like such a jerk. 4. My cousin fell out of a tree and landed on a stick attached to a rope swing. It ripped right through his shorts and went straight up his arse. Hospital didn't believe it, and my auntie and uncle were investigated by social services. Poor guy struggled to poo for a good couple of years after that. 5. Once we were going on a trip on the school bus going back home. We were watching Scary Movie 4. There were small screens at the front and some on the sides of the bus. Then, the bus stops after we arrived, and the bus driver mutes the movie. He thought the movie stopped playing. He didn't know it was still playing. He then gets up and says a speech on how nice it was to be our bus driver, etc. But the end of the movie was playing, and it was the Oprah spoof. The whole bus was laughing so hard while he was saying his speech. 6. When my uncle-in-law sang very badly at my grandfather-in-law's funeral. Or the time I was in my friend's wedding and he sang to his bride. Both men are like the people on American Idol who think they are great singers, but are actually terrible.
Ouch, a lot of those sound like it hurts a lot. I hope all the person in this story are fine now. And you're not gonna lie, I would laugh too.
What is the weirdest question you've been asked at a job interview? What happened? 1. How do you tie your shoes? Opening question. It honestly helped calm me down and made the interview easier to get through. I brought up the TED Talk on how to properly tie your shoe and the lesson I learned from that. 2. My GF was recently asked on an interview, what weapon would you want to have in a zombie apocalypse? She answered, lightsaber. They asked why. She said because it doesn't run out of ammo or get dull. They seemed to like that answer, she said. 3. During an interview, my insulin pump went off. It does this quite often. My potential boss asked me if I had to wear it all the time. I said yes, and explained I was a type 1 diabetic. They then asked me if I could leave my insulin pump in a locket for an 8-hour shift. No, I can't. It got awkward. I didn't get the job. 4. What would you do if someone started shouting at you in a meeting? I responded that I'd just leave the meeting. I don't get paid to babysit. If someone wants to act like a child, I'll leave them to it. The interviewers seemed taken aback, while the other guys were chuckled. Turns out the guy who asked the question had a habit of raising his voice to people who disagreed with him. I ended up getting the job and found out the guy was just super invested in the product he was developing. Like he had patents on it, books written, etc. So when he's in a meeting and gives an input, and someone disagrees with him, he will not let it go until they're on board because in almost every case he is right. He was a great guy and I miss working with him. He never raised his voice with me though. 5. Do you like to laugh? Asked by the most stoic woman who worked in that office. I laughed in response and got the job. Apparently, I answered correctly. 6. Last question in an interview for being a bank teller. If you could be any kind of fruit, what kind of fruit would you be and why? I said a mangosteen. Years later, I asked him about that question. He said he just wanted to know what people would say. He said there were no wrong answers.
Well, those were very interesting. If there are any HR in the audience, would you be so kind to share your similar experience in the comment section?
What made you want to quit your job? 1. Being yelled at by people I am trying to help over things that aren't my fault and that I have no control over. 2. Been doing the same thing for 8 years, I'm just tired of it. 3. The boss/upper management. I quit my last job, retired early. When my boss took credit for my work to the head of the organization. She had provided almost no support or guidance, but when it turned to being recognized as a success, suddenly, it was her work. 4. Micromanagement. This has got to be one of the most underrated issues people deal with. There is no quicker way to not only make me resent my job, but also fuel hostility in me. No matter how enthusiastic I am, the second micromanaging starts, I am checked out. This is what is currently make me look for employment elsewhere. 5. Wasn't properly trained and was constantly berated for making mistakes on things that my managers refused to train me on. The last straw was when we were forced to WFH and I couldn't even use the washroom without accusations of intentionally ignoring my manager. 6. Being tracked for my efficiency and barely making par, which was 90%, when I was trying my best. Completely was even more mad after I did quit and finding out they were lying and the average wasn't around 85 to 90%, it was 60.
In the current economy, it's really hard to find a new job, and the job market is quite trash right now. But at that point, it was toxic work environment. So leaving those toxic jobs might be the best decision to do.
What's the pettiest reason you stopped being friends with someone? 1. She wouldn't stop talking about things, like material things. What she had, what she wanted, how it looks, how much it cost, what designer/brand. Nothing else but materialistic shallow crap. I had no idea it was possible to actually have no personality or opinions. 2. I hated how they dressed. I was a teenager at the time and all about that emo/scene life, so I've grown since then, lol. 3. She borrowed my girl in meteorites and never returned them, so I deleted her number from my phone. But that's not really that petty tbh because that wasn't cheap. 4. Rich friend complaining about how much he had to pay in taxes, which was my yearly salary at the time. 5. She crunches her food too loud and sometimes speaks with a British accent for fun. I just can't deal with that. 6. She lost me when I was always telling her how much I loved a man from the same small town as me, who is my husband now, and she, despite her being married, tried to seduce him to have a power move over me. He said no, of course, but I have to say frick her. Her husband could do better.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. Until next time, stay awesome and stay fine.